My name's Martha Gleick, just listening to a recording of a band that I conducted over 20 years ago. And some of you might recognize that song. It's called Dawn of a New Day by Swearingen. So my background is 27 years in the classroom, teaching instrumental music 6 through 12. And then I went on to work for a music store for 13 years. So in those 40 years, I always ask questions from repairmen, and because most of the schools I taught in were very far away from a repair shop that I just couldn't go down the street and have something fixed. So I always ask, what can I do if something happens? And that's how I came to write this small little pocketbook called 911 Instrument Repair. And it is just that. It's emergency instrument repair work and some organizational tools that I use in the classroom. I think one of the other two things that I think are different from that I found from any other book that was written on the subject was one, I put pictures in the back, and so because sometimes in the front I reference certain parts to instruments. So, if you're a percussionist and you feel very unsure of yourself as far as woodwind keys or a brass player woodwind keys, all the pictures are in the back. And another thing that I think, even if you're a brass player, that I put in the back because someone asked me for it, is how to restring a rotor, a French horn. And the written part is in the front, but the pictures are in the back with steps 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, I really feel that as an educator, I tried to make sure it went from step to step to step. And so today we're going to look at the clarinet. And again, the other thing that sets this book apart is when I wrote it not as a textbook, but as, for instance, on the clarinet, it says, clarinet player comes up to you and says, none of my notes play. And I said, this would be me referring to the student in the text, in the class. I'd say, well, what isn't playing? And they'd say nothing. And so I would take the top joint of the clarinet totally off of the bottom joint. Again, maybe you're just not comfortable playing the instrument, but you can mechanically fix it, okay? And some of you probably have done this or learned this from someone else, but the air test. And what you want to do is put your fingers down as if you're playing C. So thumb in the back, 1, 2, 3, and that will cover all the holes, but you want to put the tendon on the heel of your hand and blow air. Now obviously you can hear air being whistling out, and that's not supposed to happen. So that means there's a pad off someplace. So again, without playing the instrument, I would look to see which keys might be missing a pad, and I've already found 2 right here. Okay, and while we're talking about pads, I have band directors ask me so often, I want a pad, I want to keep some pads in my toolbox. Well, one of the first things that I found out that there's so many different sizes of clarinet pads, flute pads, saxophone pads, that to have a collection on your own is pretty tough. I mean, you can buy those on the internet. I don't have any problem with that. But to just have certain sizes as backups. So for instance, these, you can see right here the difference in sizes. These bigger ones are for the bottom keys of the lower joint. Most of them are this on the bottom, or this size. This is a 10.5 millimeter. And most of these small ones will go up into the upper joints and the side keys, like a C sharp key. And the other trick that I want to tell you about clarinets and it would work on other woodwinds too. If if you're in an emergency and you don't have the exact size pad to fit, if you have one that's close to the size that you need, meaning that it does cover the tone hole of the instrument, that's the important thing, that you cover the tone hole, use it. Don't try to find the exact right size. There are different kinds. If you go on the internet too, there's bladder pads, and I like bladder pads because they have a thin coating of over the felt on it, and it's easier to seat the pad, meaning that as you press down the key, it forms to the contour of the tone hole. I like those better. If you get the other ones, those synthetic ones, they're fine too. Whatever you have that will, give you something as a backup in your toolbox. Okay, so I know that this key and this key are missing a pad. So I'm just going to try this one, and again, to try it, I'm not going to put any glue on it, and it fits. So I'm going to take it back out again, and something that you need in your toolbox is this little bitty tube, and it's called micro pad and cork cement. Okay, this one little tube will probably last you your entire career, because all you need is a dab. I'm not going to put it on the pad today, but all you need is a dab right on here, and what I mean a dab, very small amount. And then be careful, because it might get over your fingers. Slip it back in, and a lot of times, I would put it back in, and I would tell the student, okay, hold this key down for me for 1 minute. You're involving them kind of in the process while you get to fix something else. Okay, so those two things solve the problem. Having a pad that would match the tone hole, and having the micro pad and cork cement. Now, and I'm going to show you another tube that I have. I store this. Once this is open, this has a tendency to dry up, so I store it in any kind of a container like this. But again, this tube here I probably had for over 25 years, so that's how long that's going to last. But those things are lifesavers. So get yourself some selections of pads, and again, I store them sometimes in small little baggies. And in my book, I talk about my toolbox, and again, it doesn't look like a toolbox. It really is a fishing tackle box, but I like it because you can organize a lot of things on the top. This is where I usually put my woodwind things, and I label them with just label markers right on it. The bottom is bigger for larger items, and a lot of people ask me, I don't have a toolbox. What do I think are the most important things to get started on? Well, one, mouthpiece puller. Okay, we'll talk. I'm going to do another video later on, and on brasses, and we'll talk about mouthpiece pullers. Also, I always keep my most important tools in a little Ziploc bag, from screwdrivers to valve oil to cleaning pad to whatever. I have a drum key in there, and that's what I put when we go to contest. I put that in my briefcase, and that's my mini toolbox. So, but in the meantime, I always put it in there. So, just a couple things, information for you all. I think this book is great for college music majors, because I know that myself included way back when, and the students that are coming out now, you don't get a class on emergency instrument repair. So I think this would be good for college music majors. It's great for any level of instrumental teachers, and I don't care how many years you spent, in the classroom, there's always something that comes up. So if you would like to check out that book, go to jwpepper.com, and click on 911 or search for 911 instrument repair, and that will come up for you. I also have another great Facebook site that I like to do a number of topics that are not included in this book, and it's called the Band Director's Safety Net. So, you know, I'd like to see you go on there and click on there and like, so you can see some of the topics that I discuss on there. Or you can private message me on that site and ask me any question. Sometimes I private message you back, and sometimes I think that it's an important question that I actually answer it for everyone as a blog. So those two places that I feel that I want to be a mentor to as many music teachers as possible, and hope that little tip on clarinet helps today. And I'm going to go back to listening to this group perform. Thanks.